So we are gathering today on February 17th, and astrologically, there's a lot going on as we finish up the month of February. But today, on February 17th, we have a big aspect. It's Saturn square Uranus. And I think we could spend just the whole time talking about these two because it's it's a signature for 2021, really, when we feel into Saturn. If we want to like oversimplify it, Saturn as the old and the structure, and Uranus as the revolution and the new. I think there's many more, little details we'll get into as far as, what that means. But this is an aspect that we've been in and that will also continue over the year. So we have this first square, meaning we have Saturn in Aquarius making a 90-degree aspect to Uranus in Taurus. And so they've been at a square, but they're hitting exact square today. And this will happen again in June and then again in December. So it's something that happens 3 times throughout 2021. And it's definitely a signature of this old versus new and the change that Uranus is bringing and the change that the energy of Aquarius is bringing. Because although Saturn may be, the old, he's in Aquarius right now too. And I think one of the beauties of the old is there are there are things we want to take with us. We don't want to just throw out, everything. It's taking the wisdom and taking the things that worked, but then also getting really real about what didn't work and what needs to go. And so Saturn himself is in a revolutionary sign, which, it's all about this revolution. So today we're in that square. And so we'll probably talk a lot about this kind of dynamic between Saturn and Uranus and, what it means in the day-to-day to move through this energy that we're going to be in for the next year.
Absolutely. We also just had the Chinese New Year, and we're moving into the year of the metal ox, which really speaks to me of this balance of letting what does not work die, letting it go. Metal in Chinese medicine is autumn, it's endings, it's letting go as we also move into Pisces season here. um, and the ox is about the day to day. The ox is about simplifying and doing like the work, doing our work, and feeling into this squares are a stress point, right? And some of our stress, I know individually and collectively, comes from these like trying to constantly make things that don't really actually work,
Mm-hmm.
like truly deeply work. Continue, we keep pushing to try to force life into this box and be like, well, this is how we've decided it has to work. So this is how we're going to work. And Saturn is karma, and Uranus is like extraordinarily thought. Uranus is like, I'm going to spin through the solar system on my side while the rest of you are all upright. There's also the thing that comes for me is like this phone call between Uranus and Saturn. And almost like Uranus being like, what are you doing hosting a party at my house? Because in modern astrology, Uranus is, his house is Aquarius. And Saturn is the traditional ruler of Aquarius, and he's been hosting this cosmic cocktail party that we've been playing with at Saturn's traditional home. And I've got this image of this phone call, like Saturn, Saturn picking up the phone and being like, hello, and Uranus being like, why are you hosting a party at my house? Like kind of that like stress of what are you doing? Why are you doing this? There's feel for me of like the beginning of the unraveling, right? Because when we move through these triple square periods, the first square is so much about seeing
Mhm.
and identifying. So getting the phone call, what are you doing? What do you why is there a party going on at my house? Um, so and then the second phone call, which comes in June, is like the almost making a plan. Do we want to keep having a party at someone else's house? Do we want to keep shoving things into a box that doesn't belong in a box? It doesn't fit. Um, because we can't, I know I certainly can't continue on with certain things in my world the way they've always been. Like that shedding and that unraveling and that like, oh, that doesn't work. The
Yeah,
ox has gotta like put that down and stop carrying that so that we're carrying and we're working with and we're stepping with what we need to.
yeah. And that second square in June feels to me like blowing up the box. Like
Mhm.
we're right now we're seeing what does and doesn't work. We're getting the information, which been getting insights really since, the start of 2021 of like, oh, these are some old things that aren't working. I'm seeing things about myself. I'm seeing things that in my life. And so we're gathering the information. And so this first square in an even louder way, part of the way we can shift it too is to like just be like, maybe I just need to think about things in a totally new revolutionary way. Like this thing keeps coming up. Let me just totally think about it in a new light. Like I know that happened to me this morning. Like I was like, this thing keeps coming up. And I was like, I'm gonna totally think about it in a way that like blows everything away. And I felt it shift something in me. So I feel like that's today of like, okay, seeing the pieces. And then June is blowing up the box. June is like, especially with Uranus, if they're having their second phone call, Uranus is like, we're going to just have a even bigger, like cosmic, like explosion thing. Like forget this little cocktail party. Like there's something bigger that you can't even imagine. And then December, there will still be pieces to work through, right? Because just because we blow up the box doesn't mean like it's the end. That's actually like probably, that like kind of intense, crazy middle piece. And then by December, there's like, okay, here are the pieces that we need to wrap up. And knowing that Saturn is in Aquarius for 3 years. So, we were talking about the ox, like he is the like workhorse. He's like, okay, we're gonna like get down and dirty and make this happen. We're gonna like actually make it work. And so knowing that too, that you can kind of feel into like 2021 is a big year of blowing up the box of these changes, but it's going to take us 3 years to really refine and get kind of, the end picture here.
To create the structure, because I love that, Alexis. It's the blowing up the box is the middle part of the trilogy. I'm going to reveal my age here. So Empire Strikes Back comes out, and it's when everything looks the darkest. It's the two towers. Now we're gonna go geek now. It's two towers. It's the middle part of the trilogy, right? That middle square is the part where everything blows up and falls apart. And Saturn is here to help us do the work of creating something new and different. And Uranus is like our little like he's our muse. He wants to sing to us and dance with us and help us to find a new way for whatever Saturn is going to work with us on,
Yeah.
doing the work, plodding through the fields.
Yeah, and it's like that day to day, like I'm gonna keep on this track, right? Because it's really easy, and especially when we're pushed and challenged, to be like, I just want to like exit. I'm just gonna like exit off this, route I'm on. But it's to stay the course, and not stay the course without flow, right? Like sometimes we need to go a little left and we need to go a little right, and we need to change our plan. But it's staying on the course in some way. And that's the, kind of that reminder, because there's going to be a lot of shifting, and there's going to be a lot of like questioning, there's going to be a lot of uncertainties. And so that staying the course, right, with the ability to change, because that's why I'm not a fan of like having one goal and it's like, well, then you're going to lose everything that actually you were supposed to do on the way. It wasn't even about that goal, but it is more about staying on a course and not being like, I just want to completely exit off this like altogether.
I want to go back to the stars.
Yeah. And another piece that came up when you were talking, as you started talking about June, was eclipses. We're going to have 2 eclipses in end of May and June. So this is another like feeling into around that time. It's going to be, right, we talked about that Saturn Uranus square, second square, blowing up the box. We're also going to have 2 eclipses that will really shake things up. Like eclipses are really potent times of the deep churning and the shakeups and the like just changing everything. Eclipses are crazy. And so they're going to be going on at the same time. So just feeling into that, as we also focus on, okay, but we're here right now. We just got to like one step in, front of the next, but also feeling into like, there is more coming, right? Like there is, and I think the more we can get grounded and the more we can get like really centered and really like just, those day-to-day pieces, we'll be able to handle what comes in June.
Yeah, it's that that feeling into, this is the way my life has always been. And does continuing down that road serve you, that like end goal you talk about? Like, I just want to stay with this job until I tick these boxes. And what you're doing is you're missing all of this life. You're missing what you could be exploring, what you could be having, because you're like, hello down there. And you're looking so far that you're missing like right where you're at, and all of these beautiful opportunities that could potentially get you to a higher, more creative end goal, but you've only planted corn. Maybe you should diversify a little bit. Like maybe you really need to be like, am I willing to be temporarily uncomfortable for the possibility that if I go with what lights me up right now, rather than pushing what lights me up off and pushing it off and pushing it off and pushing it off, that I will somehow get to what lights me up if I like put in this time of suffering and plotting and being out of alignment, like trying to contort into the box.
Yeah. And I think that that's something that I would say collectively do, is like having our, it's always like, what's the next thing? What's the, there's some, excitement. There is an excitement of looking forward to what can happen, but we miss, if we're too focused on that, we miss what's right here, what's right in front of us. And I think that's a reminder, like, even as we're talking about like, yes, there's this development that's going to be happening over the year, but let's come right back to right now. And it's just doing the work where we are right now, because there's a couple of pieces, but there's doing the work now will help so that what actually happens down the road, if we're using like say the June example, like that can really be a beautiful and expansive time. But if we're kind of just waiting for June, it's probably not going to feel so good. It's probably going to feel really, really not great. And so there's that piece of like, the work we can do now will help us so that it can be more expansive. And also, yeah, like we get to enjoy the little pieces along the way, because that's all it is. Like, it's really not about, yeah, there will be beautiful things and there will be amazing things that happen, but it's really just about like the moments we have right now? And can you just be in, you know, joy? And can you be in, and even if it's not joyful things happening, like, can you be in just loving every moment? And not that, like, there are hard moments where, like, I'm the first to admit, like, I like to throw little temper tantrums here and there. And, I'm the first one to be like, I want to exit. But I can like feel into, like, those are moments that are waking me up to something. Those are moments that, yeah, I don't like it when I'm in it, but I can appreciate it. And I can, be fully here, fully present. And so I think that's, the reminder as we kind of talk about what's happening now, and then we look at the bigger picture, to just keep coming back to right now. And that idea of, you know, that ox just plugging through day to day.
Mhm. Yeah, that's beautiful, which kind of it feels like it leads us into the sun moving into Pisces tomorrow.
Yes.
Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. Um, from a body place, it's our feet on the ground, but it's also ruled by Neptune, who is king of the sea. It's dreams when it's when it's lined up with soul. It's our dreams, and it's being open to them. Um, and he's hanging out in his home sign. He's like got a 14-year run here in Pisces. He's hunkered down. He's like home with his feet up.
Yeah. Yeah. And Neptune and Pisces are, that's that similar energy of Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, like you mentioned. It's very, it represents the unconscious and the very intangible. It's a sign of the shaman. It's, like you said, the dream world and the, you know, all of those bits. And Neptune himself is a very dreamy and creative. He can be also the shadow side of Neptune can be illusion and addiction and kind of that putting a veil over things and numbing out. But the beauty of Neptune is the the wisdom of, like, being able to touch into the unseen, of being able to touch into creativity. It's huge creation. And so those two are kind of like, if we're just giving some words to, as we move into Pisces season, what Pisces is. It's a water sign. And yeah, as it's the last sign in the zodiac, there's all different calendars and things you can follow, right? There's the Chinese New Year, and there's our calendar year. And then you feel into the astrological year begins with Aries. So we're in the end of the astrological year, which is about endings and releasing and letting go and cleansing, for preparing for it to be ready for Aries season, for the new birth. And so I think this ties really well into also this time of, if we go back, so the cosmic cocktail party that we talked about, which was our last podcast, you can go back if you haven't heard it, is Aquarius season part 2. And we talk about, basically there were 6 planets in Aquarius. So there was this huge energy in Aquarius, and we, made this really cute example of a cosmic cocktail party to represent all the different players that were involved. But yeah, now we're starting, like, they're starting to move out. Everyone's going home. Everyone's like dispersing. And so the sun, is one of them that moves out. The moon already moved out. The moon was only there for a short time, but the sun now is going to be moving out. And as we come down from that, we get a chance to kind of integrate, kind of reflect on, what's happened over the last month. Because Aquarius season, which, it's kind of like, say, mid-January to mid-February, there was a lot going on. And it may not have felt it externally, it may have felt it internally, or it may have been both. It may have felt like there's a lot of shifting and changing in both ways. And so as we move into Pisces season, we get this chance to release and to also honor the endings of things. Like, we're not really great. We're really great at, okay, Aries season is coming. Great. The new, let's cool. I'm ready. But we really have to just stop, pause, and, like, honor the endings, like honor, and if we're feeling into this, astrological year, the past 12 months, like really honoring and reflecting on what has been beautiful, what needs to go, what is just, not working. That may have really, it may even be longer than 12 months. It may be like things that throughout our life are really coming to our attention right now. And yeah, there's a piece in that of honoring the endings, of um, being with that as we move into Pisces season.
That's beautiful, Alexis. Yeah, we we don't do well with endings. I think about American movies. We happy endings. I'm going to put that in air quotes for anyone who's listening rather than watching. We want happy endings, and our version of happy is very small. Because, energetically, I'd like everybody to go look in a mirror and get really honest with yourself. How often have you spent so much time like focused on something your little ego wants that you don't see something really wonderful right in the now? You don't see a job offer, you only see that it might not take you to what that thing is way out there. You don't see the opportunity to play with your child, you don't see the opportunity to connect with a friend, you don't see what's immediately in front of you because you're so far focused. And so there's death in that. There's the, like, how do we stay right now? And oftentimes when we come to endings, we really desperately want to be like, peace out. I don't want to do this ending part because it's not how I put it together in my head, or it doesn't feel good to me in the very limited little spectrum of what I have an attachment to as good. Like, do I like it when I have my little breakdowns and cry on the floor or primal scream in the basement? Does it feel good? At the moment, no, I'm like primal screaming because I'm raging. I'm sitting on the floor crying because something in me is hurting. It's the allowing that to move through so we can be moving with what is present. Like, and the anatomy and physiology geek in me just wants to remind everybody it takes 90 to 120 seconds for an emotion to actively move through us if we just let it go. When we try to control it, if we attach stories to it, if like we're pulling from the past or we're projecting into the future, those emotions take much longer. But if we can just be with the like primal scream, my trainer just broken, my bike fell off my trainer, roar. It's 90 seconds, 120 seconds. Like, move it out of your system and let that death happen. My trainer died this week. Its corpse is still in my basement. Because death is a part of what we signed up for here. It's a part of that cycle. For those of us in female bodies, our cycle starts with an end. It starts with our menstruation, the shedding and the releasing, and that's where the cycle starts. So this is beginning and ending, all held like in the same piece of like the same point, the same balance point. It's the beginning and it's the end. And that like is so much Pisces. Listening to you talk, I just got like all chills of like, oh, we get to do Pisces season now.
Yeah, it's a deep one. Pisces is deep. And as you were talking too, one of the things that was coming up was if we don't let these things move through us, they're going to come up in other ways, and it's going to take way longer. It's going to be way, right, like it's going to come up in this like little distorted ways, and these little like it's going to just poke you like all throughout the day, week, however long it takes, rather than just being in the moment. Because that happens to me where like, you're in those situations and you're like, it's fine, like I shouldn't, like, like I'll find myself for a minute being like, no, don't get upset or don't. And then I'm like, no, I'm going to get upset, and I'm going to get upset for those 90 seconds to, however long it takes, like just up to a minute or two. And you let it move through you, and that's it. And yeah, when because there are some days where it feels like you're in it for longer and it feels like trudging through. And I find for me, often it's because it's showing me something like old that I'm holding on to,
Mhm.
right? Like you were saying, you attach it to a story, you attach it to, I find I attach it to something that's like an old pattern, but I need to see it, because if I'm holding on to it, and it's like I get really good now of like, okay, I'm in this thing for like this feels like a long time. This really feels like I'm like trudging through some mud here. There's something off. And it's because I need to see that there's this old pattern, this old thing to shift. But there's a beauty in letting yourself feel the thing that's coming up, because it goes much faster, right? Like I'm sure if you
Faster.
didn't primal scream, you would have been like, probably still mad about it.
I would not be able to laugh about the fact that the corpse of my trainer is in my basement. And when I say trainer, I mean like my metal bike trainer. Um, yes, it's it's when we allow ourselves to go in, we can then, when we allow that death to happen, that's when the joy of it comes. That's when we can laugh about something ridiculous. That's when we can allow that energy to flourish and blossom into something fresh, which we'll get into with Aries season.
Right, we'll get there. So we have a whole month with Pisces season, right? So February 18th, um, basically through mid-March, we'll have Pisces season. And yeah,
We get to be in this like letting go of this like almost the other thing about like shaman that is coming up, shaman are those that stand between the worlds, right? Neptune, he is the god of the sea, but he can also be on land. I think about like the fox is a border animal, the otter is a border animal, the shaman is someone who can be both in this very, very practical day to day. I've got to go deal with clients, and then I've got to do this thing, and I've got to take care of my kid. And we've got our day to day make the meals. And we stand between this world of bringing in and listening and following. Like for me, with all the years that I've been doing shamanic practice, the between the worlds is the being able to follow, being able to dance with the energies and not spending so much time pushing. So we're back to that box. Like I spend so much less time trying to force anything into a box, whether it's forcing myself into a box or forcing my child into a box or forcing my pets into a box, or my relationships or anything else. Like it's being able to dance. So we're standing between, and we're doing both the day to day, and we're communing with like cosmic energy. We're aware of what's going on, and we're weaving the two. Degree in art, focus in fiber, so I do a lot of weaving, a lot of knitting, a lot of crocheting of how this all goes together. It's the very consciously planting our seeds, whether those seeds are wildflowers or whether those seeds are vegetables, or whether we're very consciously putting a beautiful perennial in the ground and encouraging it to be what it's meant to be, rather than what our little like sticky human idea is.
yeah. And I love that, like the being in between. It's almost like that bridge between, the two worlds, the unseen and the seen, and the practical and you know, the dreamy, because that is also feeling into Pisces. It's the dream world. So just really, if you are somebody who dreams a lot, like just taking note of like, oh, what dreams are coming. I mean, this can be at any time, but especially when the sun is in Pisces, it's going to highlight this. And if you aren't somebody who dreams, maybe try a dream journal, or maybe, just start to get a little bit curious about that. Because that's going to be a period. And again, so the dates for Pisces season are February 18th through March 20th is when the sun moves into Aries. So we have that period. And yeah, so like some of those themes are, getting curious around the unseen. What does that mean? What, is that meditation for you? Is that, what does that look like? Is that dreaming for you? Maybe you come do a workshop with Amy and I. We have a retreat coming up. Maybe you come, we'll definitely be in the unseen. Playing in the unseen, because I think there's so much excitement and possibility that comes that is hard for us to see, because we live in a physical reality. We are in a, you have to do the day-to-day things. You have to work, you have to, do the things you do, take care of your family, but you can weave in the unseen in that. And it's just getting more comfortable with the unseen, however that comes to you. And so that can just be, it can be simple too. It can be dreaming. It can be, getting curious, just whatever it looks like. There's a real chance for that to be illuminated this next month.
Yeah, it's moving out of the logical and into those more watery realm of emotion, dream, energy, spirit. It's moving into things that have more fluidity than the very bullet pointy mental body. And dancing and playing in that. Like we're in a world that we're surrounded right now by so much magic and so much awakening and so many bridges. Like there are so many bridges between this very practical and how do we bridge that into these higher places that that our heads wouldn't get us to. Our heads can't go there. Our emotions, our hearts, our deep, like gut knowing, our energy, our spirits, those things can get there. And there is as real and as true as the very practical, I have to go do the laundry now.
Yes. Yeah. And it's starting to believe and trusting that those things are real, right? All of the things in the unseen are just as real as, like you said, doing the laundry. And another one that's coming in is Mercury, because Mercury has been retrograde. So we've had a period of time where Mercury is about communication. We're coming out of, so we're at the end of Mercury retrograde. So it's been a period of reflecting in, looking at our thoughts, looking at the way we think. And we've had this chance to kind of go inward with that. But on February 20th, so shortly, Mercury stations direct. So he will be moving direct, or he will be having some forward motion. And that is a chance he'll be retracing the steps basically. So when he goes retrograde, he kind of turns around, goes backwards over where he's been. So he's revisited, but now he's coming back over that like a third time. He's coming back over that track he's made, but he's doing it in forward motion. And so now we get a chance to see things in a different way. And so if we feel into this is happening in Pisces season, maybe we get to see things in this totally different way that we didn't get to see before. Because if we feel into, you mentioned water, if we feel into as a water sign, the way I like to think about it is Cancer is emotions. It's like the water we can see, right? It's like an ocean or a pond. And then we move to Scorpio, and Scorpio is the depths, like the underworld, the water we can't see, but it's still this like, it's like the depths of the ocean. And then we get Pisces, which it's not even really like water in that sense. It's like fog. It's like this, right? Like it's this unconscious, dreamy space. It's beyond just being able to see the water. And so there is an emotional component, there is an intuitive component, but it's a little less tangible. And for Mercury to be going direct in Pisces season is kind of an interesting dynamic to me of, okay, we get some forward motion, we get some clarity maybe as he's still going to be in his shadow period. So he's still going to be, like I said, retracing his steps, but we will get, because he's an Aquarius, we will get also this dynamic with Pisces of looking at things from this like totally different, maybe a little bit unconscious, maybe a little dreamy space.
Yeah, that's super, super good. I've just been thinking about with the shadow side of Neptune being in Pisces, and that he stays in a sign for 14 years, like how long we've been dealing with this delusion, this collective delusion, right? And Mercury shifting into this forward motion now in Pisces. I'm really curious to see like how that starts to shift, or if it is going to clear up some of the fog and the delusion. You know, I know Pisces and Neptune's staying at home in Pisces for a while yet. So it may be until he moves out of Pisces that we have clarity on like big umbrella facts and information.
Mm-hmm.
But this Pisces bringing this in during Pisces, Mercury bringing in like some forward motion and some clarity during Pisces season feels really good.
Yeah, right. And he's kind of Mercury, since he's still in Aquarius, right? And like we said, so he's in Aquarius. This is happening during Pisces season, but he's still like kind of in that space where that cosmic cocktail party was, right? He's kind of like going over like, oh, what happened? He's kind of like the detective, like, huh, what happened over here? What happened over here? And he's in that Aquarius of, which is an air sign of the mental. So he gets this ability to see things in a new way. And yes, while we're going through this kind of integration and, Pisces time. And then he moves into Pisces around March 15th. So he'll be in Aquarius for a bit as he kind of finishes up and moves through as he stations direct on the 20th. And yeah, I like that idea of it's both. Like we get Mercury in an air sign, we get him kind of being that intellectual, but it's the revolutionary intellectual, right? And he's kind of that detective right now going, okay, we had this big Aquarius energy, we're starting to move out of it, people are starting to leave, I'm going to stay behind and just kind of, collect some more information, kind of see what's going on. And then he'll be ready to move into Pisces around March 15th.
Yeah. And let's hope everyone's Mercury in Aquarius can stay out of that shadowy side of Aquarius, that know-it-all side, and be more in a, like you said, detective, a more in a willingness for curiosity and exploration and gathering of things, rather than like a Mercury who's like, well, I just know. So I'm just going to walk past you rather than engaging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So yeah, we have the next aspect that we have, and again, there's always things happening in between, but just kind of things that we're highlighting and feeling. A couple of days later, we have on February 24th, Mars trine Pluto. So this means they're making a 120-degree aspect. So you can kind of imagine like a triangle, kind of that piece of, the two pieces there. But Mars is making an aspect to Pluto. And Mars is in the end degrees of Taurus, and Pluto is in the end degrees of Capricorn. Now, because Pluto moves so slow, he's going to be there for a few more years, and Mars moves faster, so Mars will be moving out of Taurus in March. But they're at this end degree of these earth signs, and Mars brings a spark to things he aspects. He just brings a spark. It just brings kind of an ignition. It can be, it can look a million different ways, but he brings some kind of fire. Now he's in Taurus, so it's this more slow and steady kind of energy. But him and Pluto, so Mars and Pluto, will be making this aspect. And Pluto is one that is he's about transformation. He's a very slow mover because he's so far out that he spends a lot of time in a sign, right? So he's going to be in Capricorn. He's been there for a long time. He's going to be there for a few more years, but he's doing this deep excavation, this deep work in Capricorn of, we had a big year of 2020 of kind of blowing up the box of this old structures and kind of shaking our foundations. And I think we all felt that in some way. And
I hope we all felt
in
that.
a big way. Yeah. And so, so most of the planets have moved out of Capricorn, which was a big 2020, signature. If we're feeling, okay, the signature for 2021 is kind of Aquarius and revolution. And the signature for 2020 was a lot happening in Capricorn and kind of rocking the foundations. But Pluto is still there. So we can't forget about Pluto. And Mars gets to spark him, to spark this kind of energy that we've been working at for years. It's been a long time. And last year, I think a lot of things came to the surface. So yeah, so just also, if we're bringing in that curiosity, just kind of taking note of what's coming up around that time. Because I think there will definitely be some old, and they feel really deep. These feel like the really, really deep things that maybe we need to look at and feel, and they will come up in some way. We just have to have be open to seeing them and working with any of the things that come up for us around that time.
Absolutely, Alexis. I love that you brought in that they were earth signs, because that's a big part of the feel on it for me, is almost the excavation of our blindness to how we deal with our practical earthy day-to-day functioning. Can Mars spark and bring some of his illuminating fire and some of his action to Pluto's transformational energy of, can we consume differently? Can we be in our day-to-day by doing things differently, consuming with less blindness, transforming how we consume. Aquarian energy is so communal based. Is there going to be a pooling of resources with how much our economy has changed and continuing to change, especially here in the US, but absolutely globally. So there's just this feeling almost of them holding, until the moon flies by. she's gonna fly right past Mars here at some point.
Mm-hmm.
They're almost this framework that's holding the major planets and the two planetoids, and just being hey, we just want to remind you that your soul signed up for this human experience, this very practical, earthy experience. And I'm an Aries sun, so Mars is one of my guys.
Yeah, and Mars, I was just looking back because I know when Mars has recently, as he's changed signs, it's been pretty significant. So if we look to when Mars entered Taurus, That was January 6th. And I believe that was the day, was that the day in
That
the
was the day.
US that, yeah,
Sedition happened.
right.
Yeah.
And, there was that storming of the Capitol and the craziness that ensued, like the day Mars moved into Taurus. So January 6th. So we feel into that. Like he's now at the end degree of Taurus. So I feel like there may be some theme coming up around that. And it may not be like that, but just right, like big things are happening when he's moving into a sign. And so feeling into, he's at the end now. So there's kind of this like reflection part, but he's making an aspect to Pluto. So this feels really big. It feels like there's going to be something unfolding there as he moves into, before he moves into Gemini. And Gemini is a very fast moving air sign. So there, it feels like there's some wrapping up pieces to do with Taurus. Like he's not done yet. He's still going to be in Taurus through the end of February. He doesn't move into Gemini until March 3rd. And at this point on this February 24th, when he makes an aspect to Pluto, and just, reflecting on that of when he moved into Taurus was, and I know it wasn't just in the US. If you look in other parts of the world, there are other protests and other things happening around that time and on that date, and so that was just a very loud one that was like, oh, Mars literally moved into Taurus, which is a sign of, it's the earth, it's the practical, it's the reality we can see, it's like this world. And that happened. So yeah.
It's completely a thing. And with Venus shifting signs, she and Mars are going to be squaring up also. So there's going to be that, like, Venus and Mars are the cosmic lovers. So I'm wondering, like, is there going to be that like energy of cosmic lovers quarrel before there's like almost it's got to be around this trine. I don't know exactly what it is.
Yeah, so the Venus squaring Mars is before that. It's right before that. So it's February 19th.
So yeah.
So Venus and Mars will square, and yes, Venus will be still in Aquarius because she's going to be moving out very shortly, but she will be squaring Mars and Taurus. So yeah, that happens first. So we feel into the feminine and the masculine energies kind of squaring off, and there can be a tension point there, but there can be that dynamic of that happening. And that happens right before
Pluto,
the Mars trining Pluto. So yeah, that happens before it. And then Venus the next day after the Mars trine Pluto is when Venus moves into Pisces. So on February 25th. So she stays in Aquarius she's also at the end of Aquarius. So she's staying in Aquarius. She hasn't left the cosmic cocktail party quite yet. She is in Aquarius, when she squares off when she makes a square to Mars first on the 19th, then she still sticks around in Aquarius to kind of watch this Mars trining Pluto, and then she dips into Pisces, and she's like, I'm gonna go take a bath in Pisces.
I love that. I'm gonna go take a bath. That's so Venus.
It is. She's like, I'll stick around in Aquarius for all of this stuff. Like I will, make my square to Mars because they're consorts. They're like,
she's gonna call and be like, I'll get there when I get there.
Yeah. But there may be a little bit of an argument, a little bit of a, like, I'm just feeling into like relationships that day on February 19th. Like just be aware. There may be a little tension, right? Like I can picture them like, kind of just having their little argument. And that
I saw that you were hanging out with Jupiter in close proximity on the 11th.
Yeah, because Venus is also she may have like a consort, but she has many lovers. So she just likes to be, and she just likes to explore, and she likes to have the good food and the good wine. But that's why she's like, then I need to go take a bath. I'm gonna go in Pisces for a little bit and just go kind of
she wants to be in that dreamy, I'm just gonna like lounge in the bathtub and allow myself to be held
Hmm.
by the water
Yeah.
and allow it to move over me and cleanse and shift. And the way that when you can be held that safely, you can move back into that dreaming space, that liminal space. So we're going to, I'm going to bring this all back to the dreaming. I'm bringing it all back to the Pisces dreaming.
And I love that because Venus is exalted in Pisces, meaning it's not necessarily her home sign, but she feels really like she likes to visit Pisces. Aquarius, not so much. Like she's doing it. She's like, yeah, I'm at the party
She's
doing
got
my,
her green silk dress on and she is rocking it.
she's totally rocking it. But when she moves into Pisces, that's why she's like, yeah, I'll stick around. I'll stay here for like, I'll be there talking to Mars. I'll witness. But then I need to move into Pisces and take a bath and like just be in that. She likes being in Pisces. She likes being in that dream world. And so feeling into that too, just like for ourselves, knowing that like, okay, there might be some things coming up here, like Mercury's going direct. We got Mars and Pluto doing some things. There's some tense moments. There's some things coming to the surface. But as we move into Pisces season, as Venus reminds us, like, go take a bath, that we have that also to kind of balance out. And Venus is very much about balance and harmonizing. And so it feels like everything that we're moving through as we move through the end of February, there's also this quality of Venus getting to she loves being in Pisces. Like I can just feel like my body's like, yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, like take a deep breath. Like Venus and Pisces feels really good and yummy.
Mhm. Yeah, that deep feminine essence that we all carry regardless of our body gender. That deep feminine energy of just wanting to just soften and be and not to have to push or manage or do anything. Yes, that's so like we're talking about Venus Pisces and I'm just like, "Oh yeah, let's go do that."
Yeah. Yeah, because whether or not we, know, and I'm sure many of us do, I think for those who are listening are probably people who are, doing the work and kind of curious about the things coming up in their lives that Aquarius season, there was a lot going on. There was a lot coming to the surface. There was a lot of the old stuff coming up, like, oh, yeah, this doesn't work.
Mhm.
We need to kind of look at this. And so, this, moving as things move out of Aquarius, also knowing that there's an unfolding that's happening. We mentioned the new moon was on February 11th. Like, there's an unfolding that will happen in the summer with all of these things. Um, but as Venus is one that moves out, yes, it feels like there is this integration of the things that have happened over the last month. And just, yeah, like that, like self-love, just being in it, just allowing yourself to also take a break. We're not really great, I would say, collectively at taking breaks and not looking at it as like, oh, this is lazy or this is unproductive. Really allowing yourself to take a break, because whether you know it or not, this past month has been intense. It may not have felt it, and I think for a lot of people, like I said, it probably did. But even for those who didn't feel it intensely, like unconsciously, like there's a lot of shifting happening. So being able to go into this Pisces space of the dreaming and the kind of softening of, and not to say there aren't, because there are other things that can come up in the unconscious that aren't all about taking a bath and loving and being all yummy. But it's this integration time, however that looks. And yeah, so that Venus piece, Venus moving into Pisces, yeah, I'm just really loving that feel.
Uh, um, just Alexis, the thing that you said about people maybe not noticing how intense things have been. I just want to bring in if you've been feeling restless, if you've been feeling bored,
Mhm.
if like those are things that can indicate that there's something going on that you're maybe pushing away,
Yep.
that you're not seeing.
Mhm.
Um, because
Those are the markers.
once you step into, if you're eating too much, if you're drinking too much, if you suddenly are binge watching like too much, you're skating around feeling how big things are. Um, so yeah, this is, we're touching on collective energy. Like if anybody wants to touch on personal one-on-one energy, contact either of us. We do individual sessions. This is where we touch on how the collective energy is pushing at us.
Yeah.
And there are times that we're going to say this energy is super intense and it's kind of rocking everyone in some way, shape, manner, or form. And it may be rocking you. And you're like, I just feel bored.
Yeah.
Because it's easier to feel bored. It's easier to feel restless. It's easier to feel like than it is to feel the whole spectrum of it, of being rocked.
I love that. Yeah, that's a very beautiful way to bring it in, of like, if you're feeling these things, like you're feeling it.
You're feeling it.
Yeah.
You could be listening to this and being like, oh, I was super bored this month. I didn't feel a thing. Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
You just, you didn't bring it and embody it.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get the full moon. So just feeling into, as we were talking about, the new moon. So I know it feels like I feel like so much has happened, like from this cosmic cocktail party, which, I really love that episode. So if you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. Where we talk about this new moon on February 11th. Like, I feel like just so much has happened because we haven't even hit the full moon, which is only 2 weeks later.
I know.
So we get a full moon in Virgo on February 27th. And so if we feel into the smaller cycle of the moon, we have a new moon. It begins to wax and grow, and we get a full moon about 2 weeks later. So on February 27th, we'll have this full moon. So you'll be able to feel into things that were coming up around the 11th, intentions that were set, things that were kind of like the seeds planted. We'll get a little mini picture of this energy of this full moon, of this, what is there, what more is there, right? A little bit more information, a little bit clearer picture, but it's small, it's very small, it's a small cycle. Because if we feel into the bigger cycle, which I mentioned, we get a full moon in the same sign. So we get a full moon in Aquarius because it was Aquarius new moon on the 11th. We get an Aquarius full moon in the summer. So that's really the big cycle. And I'm just kind of feeling back into a couple of things we talked about at the start of today. We talked about that second Saturn Uranus square in June. We talked about the eclipses, and the Aquarius full moons will come a little later in the summer, but the summer feels like a very I don't even know the word for it. There's just there's some big, like, breaking the box, some big, like, insights. Just I probably can't even put words to it because it doesn't even
It's not here yet.
Yeah, it's not here yet, but I can feel the bigness. I can feel the bigness of it. And so if we kind of like bring ourselves back now, just wanted to like touch on that. But if we bring ourselves back now to the smaller cycle of this full moon in Virgo. So we had new moon to full moon, and we get a full moon in Virgo on February 27th. We'll start to see little pieces. We'll start to see the little insights. We'll start to see a little bit more of the fuller picture, although it's just like a tiny, tiny bit. This full moon is at 8 degrees. If you're familiar with your chart, you can look at 8 degrees of Virgo just to see what's going on there for you. It's an earth sign. Virgo is also the sign of the priestess. It's, to me, a sign about bringing things in to reality. And if we feel into, the sun is in Pisces, right, with a full moon, it's going to be opposite. So the sun is opposite the moon. there is this like shamanic priestess bringing things from the unseen in, and it just feels very magical, and there's potential to really see things in a big way. We're going to be in Pisces season. The sun will be in Pisces as we get this illumination of this full moon in Virgo. Feels like this like shamanic priestess, like I can feel it, like it's this like dynamic of the shaman and the priestess, the shaman in Pisces, the priestess in Virgo, like doing this full moon thing. And so I'm very excited. I don't know, that's coming at the end of the month, and I think it's just a chance for us to, yeah, like bring some of those things into reality, to ground it. Like you had said before, if you can feel these things, but if you're not bringing it to the surface or you're not embodying it, we're just going to keep on not
Keep it up.
knowing. So it feels like this chance to really get to see and bring things in
Mhm.
and embody them.
I love, like, that feels so clean, and it feels so magical from a very, almost more practical standpoint. We get a full moon because the full moon is reflecting back, right? She's reflecting back to the sun's light. And Virgo, when Virgo is messy, Virgo is a control freak. Virgo is a perfectionist. Um, so if we see ourselves starting to go sideways into that control freak and that perfectionist place, um, that's that Virgo, like I have to control everything around me rather than like really bringing it in and controlling the only thing we can control. Um, and there's also like so much is around the sun for this full moon. There's this kind of almost like this reflection of the moon is standing like alone in her priestess, reflecting back. Like there's so much going on in Pisces and there's so much going on in Aquarius with like how everyone is gathered. She's like almost reviewing the cocktail party that she just left, right?
Yeah, this is true, right? Because if we bring it to, she was at this cocktail party in Aquarius, she's made her way around now to the other side of the zodiac in Virgo. And so she really gets, yeah, probably the most what bird's eye view
Yeah.
perspective from the other planets. She's, on the other side of the zodiac. And she's also making an aspect to Uranus. So she's making a trine. So we talk again about that 120-degree angle. The moon is trining Uranus. And Uranus is that revolutionary energy. So it all ties in. She's connected to him as well while she's getting to look at this picture of what has happened since the cosmic cocktail party, what has happened since this new moon in Aquarius. And Uranus gets to, and a trine is a harmonious aspect. So a trine is they're working together. So the moon and Uranus are working together, and not to say that, we talked about a trine before, not to say that there can't be other things that come up, but basically they're kind of working together. And so the moon now gets to really illuminate some pieces of this revolution that we're in. Like we're just in the beginning. Like it's February 2021. Like we're just at the very beginning of it.
Start. We're just popping out barely.
Yeah, literally, like the party just happened. Like we're just at the very beginning, and there feels like this aspect with Uranus and the moon that we really get to see, right? Because full moons bring illuminations often, and understanding. We get to see what has been going on, what this really start to 2021, and as we've moved into Aquarius season, what this beginning of 2021 has really brought us so far, because so much has happened like already. And I think that's this really beautiful space of this full moon of getting to see it all in a bigger way. And again, seeing it all in a bigger way, but it's only like a fraction of the whole picture. But still, you can kind of feel into that dynamic of this illumination, even though it's just the beginning.
And that, like, that Uranus and the moon are both in earth signs, and bringing that revolutionary high, like, having the priestess bring in the shamanic energy and reflect the shamanic energy from Pisces with this, like, this flavor of the revolutionary. How do we bring in the sacred? How do we move from a place of really honoring ourselves and our inner journeys and the earth that we live on?
Mhm.
Like, let's have this be an opportunity to really have it shown to us through the beauty of, like, this Virgo full moon, how we can move forward as medicine men and women, like how we can bring in that shamanic energy to be here in this, like, very physical plane. It's a really revolutionary thing.
Yeah.
We've been living in this world, and as you know, for all of the debate as to whether or not we're in the age of Pisces or the age of Aquarius and where that stops and starts, the age of Pisces was really about, like, how do we skate out of the body? How do we move out and ascend to enlightenment? How are we going to meditate ourselves out of this earth plane? And this just feels like such an invitation to uh, divinize and make holy, to make sacred, doing the laundry. Do a lot of laundry. I got a kid. to, to really bring in our gratitude. Like, I have running water, so I can do dishes very easily. I can, do my laundry very easily. And to allow the sacredness of what is in our reality to really permeate us.
Yeah, and to bring it in, like one of the things that was just coming up was like in our homes, to bring in things that remind us of the things that light us up. And whether that is, um, if there's a spiritual component or it's just passions of ours or art or, you know, bringing things in that are tangible and being able to ground our experiences. And there's something about having things that can remind us of it. So maybe it's a picture of something that reminds you of something, or maybe it's you write yourself a little note and you stick it on the fridge and you see it every morning, and maybe you need to change it up, because I know for me I can have a little note there and then it's like the first week it's like, oh yeah, then I have to change it up. But it's having these little reminders and little ways that we can ground in our experiences or these thoughts we have or these insights we have. Whether it's talking to a friend or when information comes, it's like, okay, let's bring it in a tangible way. And maybe having things, and it can be as simple as, I have a new candle that I'm really excited about. It's like this goddess candle, and I've been lighting it every night. And it does something for me to have this new thing, but it's very tangible. It's this little ritual of lighting this candle every night. It connects me into something greater. And just feeling what that is for you. Feeling, what are these tangible pieces that we can bring into our lives? Maybe it's putting a magnet on if you're doing a lot of laundry, like put a magnet on your washer and dryer or something like. But these ways to bring in kind of reminders that yes, we are living, in the physical, and we are living these, mundane lives where we have to do mundane things, but we also are magical and spiritual, and we're both.
Mhm.
And that's the beauty of where we're at, is that we get to do both. Like we get to, be a badass priestess doing laundry. Like we get to
Out of my way.
but yeah, just that piece of just reminders, little tangible things that remind you, oh yeah, this is something that lights me up.
Mhm.
Um, and I've had a lot of, it was my birthday recently, so I got a lot of nice little gifts and little like trinkets that some friends and people have given me, but like you wouldn't, like, it just makes such a huge difference to have these little reminders of things that connect you into more than just your day to day. And switching things up in your house like really can do a lot.
Yeah, it really, really can. And yes, there's just an invitation as we move toward this full moon. I've been loving seeing the moon rising in the west, and
Yeah.
every night she's higher and higher in the sky, and the blues are so beautiful right now, and the sky is so clear. How do we move into this priestess energy she's going to be bringing us for the full moon?
Yeah.
And
Seems like that's a theme, huh?
yes, this union with the shaman and the revolutionary aspect that Uranus is gonna bring in. Like, it just feels so good because yes, we planted all these seeds with this new moon, the Aquarian new moon, and now they need time to mature. And everything we planted at the Virgo new moon 6 months ago
Mhm.
is now coming forth
Yeah,
because
that's
the
huge. So yeah, if you feel into,
we cycle. We're living is cycling. If we
yeah,
are all in, everything is a cycle. Our bodies move in monthly cycles. We move in yearly, daily, weekly, seasonal. Like, if you're in life, you're cycling.
I love that. And I'm glad you brought in the new moon in Virgo too, because the date for that new moon in Virgo was September 17th.
Mm.
So if you feel into the seeds that were planted, and I personally, I love to keep a journal for the new and the full moons because it blows my mind every single time I go back and read what I wrote. And actually this, sometimes I'll wait till it's closer, but I kind of was curious. So I peeked about what was happening around the new moon in Virgo. Blows my mind. And then this time I even look back to the new moon in Virgo like 2 cycles ago. Literally it blows my mind. But if you just feel into that, what was going on around September 17th and the seeds that were planted, yeah, just taking note. I'm glad you brought that in because it is cycles. And we talked about the bigger cycles of when we have a new moon in a sign. So we had a new moon in Virgo September 17th, we get a full moon in that same sign about 6 months later. And so, yeah, I love that piece because we can feel into the cycles of, we talked about the bigger cycle of the astrological year of Pisces into Aries. That's right, the ending of Pisces and the beginning of Aries. And then also if we're, ending this, feels like this is the last kind of big thing we'll talk about is this full moon in Virgo. I think this is a good one to end on, brings us right through the end of February. That yeah, the moon is always in cycles. And so that's why I love the moon so much. I follow the moon. I keep, my journal with the moon because you can follow her smaller cycles of the 28-day cycle. Right. Because if we go new moon to new moon, that's, the full 28 days. But then there's the bigger cycles. There's a 6 months to a year cycle. And this is the time we have with this full moon in Virgo. Reflect what was happening in September. And also how can you bring it in? That's the priestess. She brings things from the unseen in. And so what does that look like for you and how can you do that? And just listening too, with full moons, we get to just listen and like, oh, this is what happens. This is what I get to see. So yeah, again, that happens on February 27th. We get this gorgeous full moon in Virgo.
Yay, I love this. As usual, this was so spectacular. I'm just going to drop one final last thing in. And that is because with our moon priestess and our sun shaman happening at the end of the month, we have an online retreat that's happening. And if you sign up and register prior to March 1st, you get a bonus workshop with us. And so since we are going to be working in those unseen realms, we're going to be priestessing, we're going to be acting as shaman for this big deep dive retreat that is fear and surrender and the reclamation and the growth that happens afterwards, the spring that comes. I just wanted to drop in an invitation to say, come and check out our online awakening retreat. It is a big, huge connection into soul. And if you sign up before March 1st, you get a bonus workshop with us.
Yes. Yeah, and it happens around the spring equinox. I think the first retreat is on the spring equinox. So yes, this is huge reclaiming and ability to step forward into the new. And it's going to be, yeah, it's a 3-part online retreat over 3 weekends. So if you want to know more, we'll put the website in the show note links. But yeah, join us. It's going to be really amazing. And I think the timing of it is just so perfect with that spring equinox and that kind of in between, right, as we move from one space to the other. So yeah, thank you for bringing that in.
Perfect. All right. Till next time.